Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, where today's show is Authentic Achievements. And before I introduce my guest and bring him out, I want to take just a moment to share with you some exciting news in my world and my little girls, which is our new book, Always With You, is launching tomorrow. We're super excited and just had a lovely moment when I was chatting with Dr. Jacqueline to realise that actually it's available now for pre-order in both Amazon, Waterstones and Barnes & Noble. And we have been so grateful for all the support so far. It's a story designed to help any little ones that are dealing with loss or trauma or change to understand that love doesn't leave us, it just changes shape. And we're really hopeful that it will help as many little hearts as possible. But enough about me. And what we now would like to go into is actually our guest for the show. I'm super excited to be joined again by the fabulous Stephen Gaffney. But before we bring him out, let me tell you a little bit more about him. So Stephen Gaffney is the trusted advisor to organizations that are number one or number two in their industries, and to the leaders who are determined to get there. As CEO of Stephen Gaffney Company, he's worked with top tier clients like Amazon, Lockheed Martin, and the US military to build consistently high achieving teams, known as CHAT. He's known for getting the unsaid said. Stephen simplifies complexity and equips leaders with practical tools that drive breakthrough results. He's the author of Unconditional Power, a cancer survivor, and the expert leaders call when the high achievement is non-negotiable. Without further ado, Stephen, welcome.
Thank you for having me, and congratulations on the launch of your book. That's so exciting. Always With You. I love that.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. Yeah, that's so kind. I'm still in a bit of a pinch me moment, Steve, because it wasn't ever designed to be a book. It was a story I wrote for my daughter, and it was only ever supposed to go to my daughter. And then her counsellor read it and said, you should really try and get this published because this could help so many other little people dealing with grief. And so I sent it off. I only wrote it in May of this year, sent it off and was very, very lucky to be given 3 publishing contracts, and picked one of them, and it launches tomorrow. And I still pinch myself on there. How did that happen?
That's great. And I can't think of another book like that. And I'm going to get that. So actually, congratulations.
Bless you. Thank you. So kind. And I'd love to hear your feedback on it afterwards, because it's as I say, it wasn't supposed to be a book, but I've had lovely feedback so far. And hopefully if it helps just one child, then it's worth doing, isn't it?
I'm sure it's going to help thousands. So congratulations.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. But this is about you and building high achieving teams. And I know when we chatted on my podcast, you're packed full of insight and actionable advice, which is amazing, because very often we have conversations and we are inspired by them, but we don't really know how to put them into practice, do we? How do we take that, oh, that's a great idea, and go, and actually now how do I live that? So could you bring to life a little bit more about your journey so far, and then we'll get into the building the high achieving teams?
I can, but I just wanted to connect real quickly. So Always With You, your book, and yes. That I see that type of issues also with teams as a whole. Yeah. You've experienced this where people get together and their issues look like with other people, but so often it's unsettling issues that we have with ourselves and in the past that we bring to that team and sometimes project on others. And so I've coached people that are actually seeing ghosts. What I mean by, let's say they had their trust broken in the past. Yeah. So they're so worried about that trust being broken again, they actually make issues that really aren't those issues. For example, have you ever had a situation where somebody asks you this situation, can't you believe what that person said? I can't believe that. And they replay what that person said, and you're like, that's not really that bad. You're reading into that. And so I say this because what I've learned is awareness is so critical. And that actually ties into even my journey. My journey is a lot of the work I do and teach as a result of learning for myself first, whether it's resolving issues, whether it's working with others, and all of that. I tested the strategies on myself because I needed it. And then I learned that it could be used with other people. So I congratulate you on your book. It's such an important concept and point, and actually it applies to every human being. And I see how that applies to teams as well.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. And it's so true. Very often we're, I do a lot of work on conflict resolution, and what I find, and I think it resonates with what you've just said, is that both parties are stood there going, "You're not listening to me," and actually, you're not hearing each other. You're so busy trying to get your message across that you're not listening to the other person. And actually, if you were able to, you'd realize that actually you're both violently agreeing. You're just using different words, and you're misunderstanding what each other's doing. But and I love that, and we've just chatted about this before, that you've tested all of your theories out on yourself, and you've recognized that actually you need that work too. Because a lot of mine has come from working on me, realizing what I needed to change, the bit of me that I was projecting into situations, because the emotional brain responds 24 times faster than the thinking brain. So what happens is something happens, and then we make it mean something. But to your point, when somebody else plays it back, you go, "Oh, that's not that bad," because you've not attached the same meaning to it. So how do teams go about starting to really build true connection so that they can understand when actually they are seeing those ghosts, as you describe?
Well, there's a lot to consider here. So let's talk about the first overall, our core concept, which is about consistently high achieving teams versus high performing teams. I think the word performing doesn't really do justice of what we have to consider and do right now. And here's what I mean by that. Performance can be confused with hard work, where achievement is about results. That's why I love what you do and authentic achievements, because it is really about, or at least my interpretation of this, is it's all about achievement and results. And that's important to remember why we're here. So how that how that connects with teams is, I've seen people get all hung up and be in silos, and they forget the overall objective is for the organization to do well, whether it's to accomplish a mission, goal, or whatever the case is. So one of the first essential elements of a consistently high achieving team is to know your North Star, PGS. Everybody talks about the North Star, but what I mean is PGS, purpose, goals, and strategy, which we can talk more in particular, but it's about ultimately knowing where we're going. That's critical to deciding what to do day in and day out.
I love that. I mean, it's you've made it sound so simple, but actually it isn't. It's once you get there, it makes everything simple, but getting there can be quite hard work, can't it? Doing the work to distill it down to ensure that you've got real clarity on that purpose, that the goals align to it, and that the strategy for how you're going to deliver those goals is valid and is revisitable, because we don't always get it right first time, do we? We've got to be able to hold our feet to the fire and go, is this working the way we wanted it to, or are there elements that we need to adapt or amend or swap out if they're not helping us? But having that framework of being able to constantly pull yourself back to, is this going to deliver against the purpose, the why we're here?
Yes, and we have a document for people. So people go like, what can I do about this? Because it sounds, again, and this is where the two of us are so connected. It's one of these things that sounds so simple, but it really isn't. And I'll prove it to people in this way. If you're running a team, go around the room and ask people, what's the purpose of this team? What are our central goals that we're all working towards? And brace yourself for that response. I remember I had a client of mine, he said, no, that's not an issue with our team. And I said, well, you may be right, but let's test it. Let's go around real quick around the participants in the room. And there were about 12 people, and ask, what's the purpose of this team? What are we trying to ultimately do? What are the unifying goals? And we got all these different answers. And he started to get irritated. And so I said, all right, time out. We need to take a break. And I pulled him aside. I said, all feedback is good feedback. You may not like it, but it's telling you what needs to happen. So the first step is to get clear where we're going. We have a document on this, and they're welcome to come. They can go to justbehonest.com, stephengaffney.com. It all will point to the same website. Go to the contact information and mention the show, and we'll send you the document of what you can circulate with your team and work on this, because there's a lot even more to unpack here, but it's ultimately about really being clear what we're doing. And I wouldn't assume that people are not clear, because I would say, having done this work for almost 30 years, I'm going to ballpark this. I would say 90% of the teams I've worked with, when we really dig deep, are not crystal clear of ultimately where they're going.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. And it is a fabulous resource. So everybody listening, watching, honestly, take Stephen up on it, because you will be really glad that you did. It is so insightful. And you're right. We often assume that because we've told people that they've understood it. And, it always reminds me a little bit of playing Pictionary with my best friend, If I don't get it first time, she underlines it. And I'm like, no, you need to draw me something else. No, I don't understand it. And so, I've often said it in organizations, just because we keep saying it doesn't mean to say people are understanding it. We actually need to hear it back from them.
Yes.
To have them tell us what they think the purpose is, so that we can be clear.
And it even ties into what you said earlier around conflict, because to your point, it's so fascinating how people really don't listen and really seek that feedback. And a great example of this is, take two people who are arguing, pull them both aside and say, do you feel like the other person's listening? And 100% of the time, they'll say no. And so people say, what do you do first? Well, the first step is to listen to them first, deeply listen to them, which we can talk about more, but in essence, about really getting where they're at. And one of the essential elements of a consistently high achieving team, another one of the 12, is to be them. And be them doesn't mean that we agree with them. It means understanding them so well we can actually be them, play them in a movie, represent them if we were a lawyer. It doesn't, again, mean that we agree with everything they're saying, but we get where they're at. And that's the first step to resolving all conflicts.
Oh, Stephen, I love that. And this is why we are so aligned. It reminds me, one of the things I used to do when I was prepping for a meeting that I thought could be difficult is I'd first play the part of everybody else in the room. So I would, if I was them, if I were in their shoes, what's going on in their world right now? What's important to them? And how might what I've got to do land with those parts, just so that you had got better answers when you were in that space. But really putting yourself in that other person's shoes, suspending what you need for a moment is invaluable, isn't it? Because very often when we do that, we find a way to collaborate in a way that we wouldn't have been able to do before. But you've talked about deep listening, and I know it's something that you are expert at. How do you truly deep listen?
So a really good way to do this is to ask a person on a scale from 1 to 10, how are we doing? How are we working together? How am I supporting you? Whatever area we want to look at. Say on a scale from 1 to 10, how are we doing on this, or how am I doing on this with you? And then when they give us a number, and sometimes people feel uncomfortable and they might say, oh, you're an 8 or a 9, and even though we know that it's not the case, then you could say, well, what would it take to make it a 15? But at least if they give you a number lower than, I'd say, 8, say to them, what would it take to make it a 10? So we go, on a scale from 1 to 10, how well are we working together? How well is our relationship? How well are we collaborating? And then whenever they give you the number, say first, what would it take to make it a 10? And then if they give you that exceptionally high number, what would it take to make it a 15? Yeah. And then really listen. And here's the thing I found about listening. As soon as somebody says something that we don't agree with or is factually wrong, we have this compelled we almost feel compelled to correct them in the moment. What I coach people to do is take a note and don't respond. Let them talk it all the way out. And then when they're done, repeat back what you're hearing them say. I don't mean word for word, but in essence, and then prove to them, I really get where you're coming from, which we can demonstrate. And then look at what they're saying and then start to deal with those issues. The reason why I say this is I've also found by working in the Intel area and with security and whatnot, that generally speaking, whatever somebody first tells you is the issue is almost never the real issue. So if we respond or debate with them, as soon as we don't like something, they're going to shut down. That's why we need to deeply listen to them in such a way as we really get what's going on. I'll say one more thing about this, and I know I'm going on about this, but I'm so passionate about it. Where people say, I can't, have you ever experienced where you seemingly can't make somebody happy? Like they'll say to you, I'd be happy if you do this. I'll be happy if you do that. And then you try to jump through hoops and do all these things, and they're seemingly still not happy. And so sometimes we might think to ourselves, you know what? I can't seem to make this person happy. I would contend that we haven't found out what would really make them happy. And that's why to deeply listen to them first and be them.
Wow, I love that. And so I'm just smiling because I definitely get the jump through hoops. But what I really liked was that kind of like, give them the chance to play it all out, and take that moment, like you said, write a note and come back to it.
Yeah.
I think, it reminds me of was it called the 5 why theory, that says the first answer you get isn't going to be the correct answer. It's going to be the one that they think you're most likely to accept. And actually, when you get to you keep going, okay, so why is that interesting? How's that important to you? What would that give you if you got there? That by the time you get to the 5th layer, you actually get to the crux of what's really going on, the real problem. But like you say, it's giving them the space to talk all of that piece out. And I guess it's having the strength of mind to not need to immediately put your point across. And that
it really are.
It is, because as you say, we've almost all been brought up with this. Well, no, that's just wrong. So we need to tell you it's wrong because we need to stop you where you are. And I keep trying to say to my little girl, ask yourself the question first. What value is there going to be to me or to the other person of proving that they're wrong and you're right? Because if there's no value, there's no point.
It reminds me in life how often you hear, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Yeah.
So often people are arguing, it's like, who cares? I'll just kind of share this kind of comical story. There's a friend of mine that does this wine tasting and contest or whatever. I don't know much about wine, but I love participating because it's a lot of friends or whatever. So anyway, a good friend of mine, he helped his girlfriend at the time. And anyway, she won the contest. And so she won. She was really excited. And he turns to her and said, well, that was great because I was so glad to help you. And you could feel the air coming out of the balloon. It's like, and the music going, whap, whap, whap. The reason why is he just stole her thunder. He didn't mean it that way, of course. He was like, oh, I'm glad we were able to work together. But the way it came across was, I helped you. And so it just reminds me how often people want to or be right. And really it's about helping the other person, but also not necessarily taking credit. And on a more kind of work-related situation, I always say to people, look, a job of a leader is to make others heroes. You make other people heroes. You got a rough idea, craft it, alter it. If you get a rough idea from other people, craft it, alter it, do something with it, and make it great. But then give the other person credit. Make other people the hero.
Oh, I love that. And sorry, I was still smiling at the story because we can so easily do that, can't we? We do something really well and we make somebody feel really great, and then we take it all away with careless thought around how we're sharing it. And I love the whole piece around making other people heroes. For me, I've always been a big believer that any success that we have is as a result of the team. It's a result of all of us, not as a result of anything that I do. I hope I play my part in the team, because if not, we've got a problem. But actually, the team is it's about all of us. It's about everything that we do. But again, we're not always we're not always taught how to do that, are we? How to do that gracefully and graciously without making it sound almost contrived. Would that be fair?
Well, true. And that just, reminds me, I was about to say trigger, but that would talk about something else we talked about in the past. But it reminds me how often strategies are taught that are really gimmicks or almost magic tricks that will work in the moment. But when somebody discovers that what we're doing, it won't work. Remember that strategy about mirroring, where you're like, you and I, let's say we're trying to connect. So I would try to, you talk fast, I would talk fast, you talk slow. I try to, how you sit, and I would try to well, that in theory works, right? People who like others who are like them. But if somebody catches us that we're doing that like in an inauthentic way, it just ruins it. Now, we are naturally going to mirror each other when we're connected, but have it be natural. And so I run the test, and I always share with people, never use a strategy that if somebody discovers what you're doing, you're going to feel uncomfortable. You should be able to say, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. I am trying to deeply listen. I am trying to be you. I am trying to get the other point of view because I'm always stuck on mine. Yes, I'm trying to not be right. I'm trying to make us happy or us be happy. So I love the filter of teaching stuff that if the other person knows what you're doing, it's not going to unravel. It's going to help. And I can give other examples as well.
Oh, Stephen, I love that. It reminds me of many years ago when I worked for a company called Egg. And one of the things that they did as a strategy, and I still live it to this day, was they talked about dancing with customers. Because actually, if you shared with your customer, that's what you were trying to do. That to your point, you can stand by that. But they were like, if I were a dance, I talk very fast. I wave my hands around a lot. I'd probably be, a tango or something. So if the customer was a waltz, how would that dance feel? And it won't feel very good. So actually, you've got to become, they're the lead, and they're leading the dance. So you take on their dance moves. And so we often used to share that with customers because it was actually quite nice. And people were like, oh, what a lovely thought. Because you get that. It's like, we're trying to make sure that this feels good for you, that this feels comfortable for you.
Yes. And one of the most important things, or I would say the most important message, I just want to get out there and then connect it to what we're talking about, is the biggest stumbling block of all relationships, all teams, and all organizations is lack of honest communication. But what I mean by honest communication isn't about truth or lies. That's not the real problem. The biggest problem is not what people say. It's actually what they don't say to each other. It's what they leave out. And the key is to get the unsaid said. So here, let me tie this into like what you were saying earlier with the 5 whys and what we're talking about now. Whenever we're feeling uncomfortable, just say that. So I'll give you an example around asking questions and just getting the unsaid said. I was working with a team, and we always do an analysis of the team with interviews and finding out the real issues. We found out that this leader was running a team that the team thought he doesn't trust us. And so I asked him when the data came back, when the report came back, why do you think that's the case? He goes, I don't really know. But one thing I'm seeing here is that people are responding negatively to me asking a lot of questions. And I said, well, that could be connected. And he said, yeah, that's true. And I said, so why are you asking those questions? Why are you asking so many questions? And he said, I just want to know. I want to learn. And I also want to challenge people. But it's not coming from I don't trust them. It's because I want to grow with them. And I want us to think outside the box. And I'm trying to learn from them. I said, well, why don't you say all that? So when we started the session, he led with that. He said, look, I understand that some of you may not trust me, and this may be connected to me asking a lot of questions, whatever the case may be. But let me just say this. The reason why I'm asking you these questions, and then he explained it. And then the issue went away. And guess what? He continued to be his authentic self. He asked a lot of questions, but now people understand the perspective. So whenever somebody's stumbling, it's just get the unsaid said. If you're trying to work with somebody and you're worried about them getting defensive, say that. I want to talk to you, but I don't know how to share this without it coming across wrong. In other words, continue to look at getting the unsaid said and getting others to get the unsaid said.
Amazing. That is, it's so important, isn't it? Because context is king. And I tell that all of the time when she asks me a question, I'm like, hold on, we were just talking Barbies, now we're over here. Can you give me a little bit more information? But that kind of like setting that context, giving people like, what's your intention? I use that all the time. If I'm having to have difficult conversations, I'll share that, I'm a bit conflicted about doing this, and then I'll share why I'm doing it, which is, if you don't know, you're going to get in your own way, and I don't want to see you do that. So, but it's in having the courage to be vulnerable, isn't it? To say, actually, I'm not feeling 100% here, or I'm not certain how this might land, and I don't want it to land in the wrong way. Or, and I think, having the ability to do that, and you always do it so graciously, so that actually you don't even notice really that you've tackled an uncomfortable conversation because you've led into it so gently. Is that an important part of the skill?
It is, and it just comes again with the ability to get the unsaid said. So if you're feeling vulnerable, say that. And it's interesting that we bring up vulnerability, because vulnerability inspires honesty. I've found vulnerability inspires honesty. So if we want other people to get the unsaid said, if we're vulnerable, it makes a huge difference. So a good example of that is, as a leader, we can say, all right, everybody needs to do these things, and we need to move out on this. Or you could say, look, everybody needs to do this and move out. And the reason why I'm saying this is because if we don't take care of this, we run the risk of the business going downhill. I don't mean we're doomed. I mean, we just need to address these issues now. And in the past, I've had issues where I didn't get it addressed and it came back to bite me. And then I might share a lesson learned. I often have worked with leaders and who are so great, but they've lacked the ability or desire or realization about sharing how they have screwed up in the past and what they learned. So that's so important if we want other people to be more vulnerable. And I'll say to leaders, you don't realize how intimidating you are, and just by your position. So people think, oh, you got it all figured out, versus we've all gone through such big challenges. So, for example, in the book, Unconditional Power, my latest book, I share a lot of things that I've messed up, because that's how I've learned a lot of these strategies. But here's my point. Vulnerability inspires honesty. So how are we being vulnerable?
I love that. It's so true, because we don't often share our mistakes, do we? Because we're kind of like, there's still that little bit of embarrassment that we made them in the first place, because now we've made them and we've learned from them, we know what not to do next time. So there is that bit, but actually our mistakes are our greatest lessons, and therefore they can be really great lessons as well for our people. And to your point, once we share that it hasn't always gone swimmingly, that we've made, I've made some pretty big disastrous whoppers in my time. I'll be honest, Stephen. I've got one particular one that I still call the Valentine's Day massacre. I mean, nothing actually happened, nobody got hurt, but we were putting in a system, and I was in charge of it for the branch of the bank I was in, and I'd done all of my bit, and the project team had done all of their bit, but we'd not checked that the two bits worked. So they didn't. And therefore, we managed to wipe out the entire banking system for 4 hours while we got it fixed. Pretty big. It was a pretty big disaster. But it didn't lose me my job. You could grow from it. You could understand it. People were very accepting. And I learned a lot about what you need to check in projects moving forward. I was a young team leader. But I share that with people often, when I'm leading teams, to go, like, it's never the mistake that defines us. It's what we do with the mistake that defines us. And often it's just, all mistakes are just more data. They're data we don't enjoy. They are data that allows us to make a different decision. Would you say that's fair?
Absolutely. In fact, another one of the 12 essential elements is the frozen principle, the ability to let it go. But letting it go doesn't mean we forget and we don't take the lessons learned. It actually means we grow from those lessons learned. It's like people who say, oh, fail fast. Well, it's fail fast and learn fast. And we grow. We all make mistakes. The question is, what do we do about it? I love watching a lot of Netflix shows. And I was watching a show recently, and there's a great line in there is, why do we have pencils? And that's because people make mistakes. We all make mistakes. The key is fail fast, learn fast.
I love that. So it's so true. We do all make mistakes, don't we? And we do grow through them, as long as we I always think that we grow through what we go through, but only if we go through it and take the lesson, take the learning, because if not, we're just going to make the same mistakes again. And I think it's creating that environment, isn't it? That safe environment where people don't fear the failure.
Yes.
It doesn't say you're wanting to encourage failure. It's not like, let's all go out and see how many times we can fail. But if we fear the failure, we'll stop taking certain risks, won't we? Because we'll be too wedded to needing the security of it being right all the time.
Yeah. And what I have found by coaching people to forgive and let go, again, forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. Or obviously growing from things. And why it's one of the 12 essential elements is because when people are stuck in the past, it's because they haven't really learned from the past. And if they have learned something, it's often disparaging. It's like having our trust being broken and say, okay, well, what I learned is I can't trust other people. Well, that's not empowering, and that doesn't help us move forward. The key in life I found to letting go is to learn from the past in an empowering way. And again, if they want something on this, there's a document we can send to them about how to forgive and actually grow from that. There's a 7-step methodology. It's out of another book, but I'll send it to them for free. Again, all they have to do is go to Just Be Honest and mention the show, and we'll send them that, as well as even the document about how to get the unsaid said.
Amazing. They will be such invaluable resources, because I think with these things, we've all got an experience of when we were uncomfortable, when we'd got something that we hadn't said. And whilst we really wanted to say it, we didn't know how to. and so it went unsaid. And then all that does is build frustration, doesn't it? Because every time it goes unsaid, there's a layer of frustration that goes, why don't they know?
Yes.
You've not told them. You've not told them. They can't possibly know. But that loop in the brain doesn't link that piece in, does it? It doesn't link in the fact you've not shared it with them. You just expect them to pick it up by osmosis. And I think there's the challenge is actually being able to hold yourself to that same level, to make sure that you are always making sure that the unsaid is said, because it's the unsaid that is driving what's really going on in our worlds, whether we are willing to acknowledge it or not. And so our world isn't going to change until we make it said, so that it's out in the open then, and people can deal with how we overcome it, how we resolve it, because everything's overcomable, isn't it?
It is. And the first step is awareness. Second step is we got to get the unsaid said. And so people might say, well, how do you get others to get the unsaid said? And one of them is to make people feel emotionally safe, which I think is an upgrade from psychological safety, which we can talk about. But in essence, here's what a great example of what I mean by this. Have you ever had somebody say to you, I'd love feedback, and you can say anything to me. And so you give them some critical feedback that you're trying to help them, and they get defensive. They flip out on you. Next time they ask you for feedback, what are you thinking? I'm not going there. It's interesting how people train and condition people to lie to them by their reaction. So if people are listening right now, watching show, obviously, and they're saying, oh my gosh, I can do that. What do I do? Well, go apologize. Because here's the thing. If we create an unsafe environment, people will shut down. And even if we're leading a team and we are good at making people feel safe, the question is, are you managing the team dynamics so other people don't overly react and cause other people to shut down? It's all about creating that emotional safety, which is an upgrade from psychological safety.
I really like that. Yeah, because I think sometimes we get these, I like psychological safety, which is important, but we bandy everything into it. And you're right, how we accept the feedback when we're given it is going to drive what level of feedback we get in the future. Because I remember many years ago working for one organization, and it wasn't until things went horribly wrong that people were like, oh, you really are like this all of the time. And I was like, yeah. Kind of, this is me. And they said, well, kind of, we just thought you're always so like, you're so kind and caring, even though you hold people to account, and we had to drive performance. I ran commercial teams for 20 years. They said, but you do it with such kindness and such empathy and such listening. He said, but that's all well and good when you're always slaying your numbers. He said, but we were like, yeah, wait to see what she's really like when we miss a number, when the wheels come off the bus. And when it did, I stayed the same. And I was like, because I've got no credibility with you ever if I suddenly swap who I am because the result hasn't gone the way I wanted it to. Because you'll never trust that I am who I say I am. You'll always be waiting for the what if.
Yes.
But moving into new organizations, I've kind of shared that story with her. I get it's really hard as the leader to tell you that I want feedback, because I can say that, and I guarantee in your lifetime you've had people say it, and then when you've given them the feedback, they've bitten your arm off. So I recognize it's a lot for me to expect that you're going to be willing to give me the feedback, but all I'd ask is trust me first and let me prove to you the trust was worthwhile. Because it's a big ask, isn't it, to go into to ask your team to share with you the parts that you're getting wrong, the areas where you could be doing better, because they've all probably had at least one experience where that person said they wanted it but didn't like it.
Absolutely. They've had some bad experiences, which again, that connects well with what we talked about earlier about people seeing ghosts. And so they're like, I don't want to share things, but wait a minute, why not? Because they've had bad experiences of the past, but just because you had bad experiences of the past doesn't mean you're going to have a bad experience now. The other thing that I think to consider around this emotional safety is another element that I found critical is rewarding honesty. And I don't mean financially, I mean doing something with it. How often have you seen these companies that do employee surveys or people who ask for feedback and they don't do anything with it? At best, they report back what the feedback, but they don't take specific action. And if they do, it's months and months where people are like, this takes forever. So I've worked with teams where people say, I feel safe to bring things up, but nothing will change. And when people feel like that, they shut down. We have to reward honesty.
That's so true. And I think sometimes when we get feedback on things, sometimes they are big things that we're going to take a long time to change. Yeah. But that doesn't mean to say we can't be letting people know while we're going through it. It's like we're working on that, but there's always some low-hanging fruit, quick changes that you can actually make and implement. And it is, to your point, it's that giving them back the recognition, saying, look, we understand that took something for you to be that honest with us, for you to share that piece, to be vulnerable enough to let us know that this isn't going well, was a big thing, and we should celebrate and acknowledge that, so that you're willing to take that step again.
Yes,
because that's trying to grow, isn't it? Is that space where they will feel that the next step's easier because the last step was taken so well and was acted on.
And that when I work with teams, and when we work with teams, we make sure at the end that there's specific action items they've agreed to do that they're going to do very quickly, not months down the road, but now. And that's really important, because how often have people attended a meeting and thought this is a waste of time because we keep having the same conversation over and over again. We're not taking action. We got to move out with speed. In fact, speed is a really interesting differentiator, and speed, I found, improves quality and motivates people. First, it motivates people because people feel like, wow, stuff is getting done, but it also improves quality because if we move out on something and we get feedback, we can beat out the competition. Some people are way too slow, but the big point is to take action as quickly as possible.
I love that. Stephen, I always so love our conversations. I can't believe where the time's gone. It's like it always just flies. And I want to make sure that before you go, you can share with the audience how they can get in touch with you and who you help.
Great, thank you. So if they go to justbehonest or stephengaffney.com, goes to the same place, mention the show, we'll send them all those documents I mentioned earlier. And in fact, there's one other document I want to send them. There's a 9-step methodology I wrote about how to have difficult conversations. We'll send it to them for free, but they have to mention the show. So if they mention the show and they mention these documents that they want, we'll send this to them for free. So if they go to justbehonest.com, and who we work with are any organizations that have teams. And in fact, now we have an online system called the Team Achievement Accelerator. It's called the Team Achievement Accelerator. If they go to Online, Team Achievement Online. They're actually, all these strategies are online and accessible to everyone in the world, aside from whether they work with us directly for an in-person session. So if they go to teamachievementonline.com, it'll take them right to there. But if they forget all that, they could just go to Just Be Honest. And if they just want a conversation, we'll help them in any way possible.
Bless you. Stephen, it has been a delight, as it always is. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time, your insight, and just the conversation is always such a joy. I'm looking forward to next time, but thank you for joining me.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on the show. And I so love your questions. They really get to the heart of the matter. So thank you for allowing me to be on this. And most importantly, congratulations on your book.
Bless you. Thank you so much. I look forward to our next conversation, Stephen. And to everybody listening and watching, I hope you found today's episode to be as insightful and inspiring as I have. And until next time, take care.
Meet Lady Ella, a special ladybug who is trained by Grand Beetle on how to listen at an elevated level. After earning her gold wings, Mother Earth and Father Universe asked her to travel across the solar system, teaching life lessons to creatures to respect one another and to listen. Learn more about her travels in the book series, The Amazing Adventures of Lady Ella. The Amazing Adventures of Lady Ella, the Listening Mentor. Lady Ella's ABCs of Listening. Lady Ella has afternoon tea in London. The ocean calls and Lady Ella listens. Lady Ella listens in the Baobab National Game Park. Lady Ella's space adventure across the universe. The magical adventures of Lady Ella and her super-powered friends. There are also collections of colouring books for parents and kids. Providing world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Join our team of elevated listeners to teach children elevated listening skills. Lady Ella would like to teach you and your family how to listen at an elevated level. If you're interested in learning life lessons as well as how to communicate more effectively as a family, go to Amazon and order Lady Ella's books. They're all there just waiting for you.
Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? In a world quick to judge, one book dares to reveal the hidden cost of silence. Discover Holy but Harmful, The Silent Sin of Judgment, How Hidden Judgments Destroy Relationships and Damage Lives by Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. The Amazon #1 bestseller that's transforming the way we understand ourselves and the way we see others. Pick up the companion workbook to uncover your own hidden judgments and learn how to break free from them. Available now on Amazon and at fine bookstores worldwide.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.